Roll call. We're all present. Some are off camera, some are not. Doug, you, Jody, myself, Tom, Joan, and Nicole are all in the room. Invocation. May we pray for our country at all times, that all citizens are safe, healthy, and happy. We pray for wisdom for all those who guide and govern. Help this government body in every situation to know and to do things that are right and just, with soundness of judgment in making vital decisions. We pray for the peacemakers, that the holy, life-giving Spirit may ever dwell in their hearts, and that the barriers of fear, suspicion, and hatred may fall. This we pray to the Holy Father. Amen.
Amen.
That prayer was written by Tony Levesque from Fort Fairfield. Item number 3, Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Item number 4, Public Forum. Comments can be submitted to the clerk prior to 6 p.m. on the day of the meeting and to be read at the meeting. Comments must include the individual's name and address. Jane.
I have 2. The first one is from Gail Hagelstein of 34 Coolidge Avenue. Good morning. Here is the complete letter to the editor I request to be read at tonight's meeting during public comment and to be put into the record of tonight's proceedings. Unfortunately, the Aroostook Republican had a policy of 450 words, so I needed to edit it severely. This original version has 664 words and should not take long. Thank you, Gail. This is her letter. After watching the City Council meeting of April 21st, I am concerned regarding a financial proposal being submitted by our elected officials. Their plan is to give full-time city employees a $500 gift certificate and part-time employees a $250 gift certificate. These are to be used at businesses in Caribou, not outside city borders. This windfall to the city employees has been called a bonus, an economic stimulus, or a thank you to raise morale. After talking with some council members and the city manager, these are the justifications given along with my responses. City employees are not receiving a raise this year. I'm so sorry to hear this, having been through years of not receiving raises or COLAs. I know how hard this can be on family budgets. Our city employees work hard and work smart. They deserve it. Does a $500 gift certificate replace a well-deserved raise? It will help morale among city employees. Morale can be challenging to manage. Low morale has not happened because of this current global crisis. In all times, especially tough times, employees need to be treated with dignity and respect. That goes quite a way to show employees' appreciation and how they are valued. Anyone who has attended any of the budget hearings the last couple of years realizes how words, accusations, and tones of voice degrade respect and professionalism. Economic development was another reason. Isn't this a good way to help small businesses? I was asked. This economic stimulus is coming from our tax dollars, the property taxes you and I pay to help finance the city. Do I think it is equitable for me and my neighbors to fund an economic stimulus package when there are many people in this city who are laid off, had their hours cut, or even salaries decreased? Our neighbors still need to pay mortgages, car payments, purchase food, and pay utilities. Some are taking vacation time or family leave time to stay home with their children and taking on the job of teaching with support from RSU 39. This is a thank you for city employees who found savings in assorted department budgets to cut the tax rate. When told to cut my budgets, I was never rewarded for doing what I was told. It was hard and difficult. We tightened our belts, doing more with less. We got creative by thinking outside the box. We did it because it was our job. There was no money left for monetary rewards. If a windfall happened, it would have been applied to our budgets. This is the money that tax-paying citizens of Caribou have paid to have the services we need in this community. There will be a number of city employees who will be getting these bonuses to spend in this town who do not live in Caribou, who do not pay Caribou property taxes. And $40,000 be better used. Blight, unsafe sidewalks, a rainy day fund for emergencies, such as another river road or more chip seal or even blacktop on some country roads. Please note, this letter is not against city employees. I have volunteered side by side with too many of them not to respect and thank them for their job, the job they do to make this community better. I am grateful for those employees who go above and beyond, doing more with less. Many are behind the scenes doing jobs we don't see. Few people like taxes, but they are a necessary evil for the services we currently have. I thank you publicly while wondering if this money can be used for the benefit of the city as a whole. P.S. I want to express my appreciation for the cities of Madawaska and Holton for thinking outside the box and being creative. These towns have found creative ways to bring together their communities with neighbors, helping neighbors, and help with economic stimulus without using taxpayer monies. The second one is Phil McDonough II, May 4th, 2020. Good day, counselors. I would like to have this read during public input session of today's meeting. I would like to comment on the recent article in the Heuristic Republican about a stimulus voucher that you, the council, want to give to municipal employees and selected businesses in town. I know your thought process was well intended, but it was not well developed. My question is, how is each person and or each business in our community going to benefit from the generosity of your plan? These vouchers are going to approximately 90 city employees whose job, pay, and benefits have not been impacted by this terrible pandemic. Our community is comprised of approximately 7,600 or so people, many of whom are not currently working or on fixed income. I could labor through this, but the point is that the best thing to do, to be fair to the community as a whole, would be to use the undesignated reserve remaining from last year's budget to reduce the tax burden. That takes in the majority of the community and not just a certain segment, and would have a more meaningful impact. Thanks, and have a nice day, and stay healthy. Phil McDonough.
Anything, Dennis, that you received?
In your council packet, under the same discussion, we did receive a phone call from another lady who expressed gratitude and appreciation for the council's thought in the matter, and expressed how much she appreciated and was willing to have some of her taxes go to the same project. But it's in the council memo, and we can talk about that again when it's on the agenda.
Okay. Well, thank you, Phil, and thank you, Gail, for your comments. Item number 5, minutes. The regular city council minutes from the April 21st, 2020 council meeting. Chair will entertain a motion.
Second.
It's moved by Tom, second by Joan, to accept the minutes of the April 21st meeting. Are there any additions, corrections, additions? Hearing none, all those in favor? The motion is unanimous. Item number 6, finances. Discussion regarding the mill rate reduction in 2020. I'd like to move this item to the end of the meeting. Let's put it under 9B. Number 7, bid awards, appointments, and recognitions. Public Works bid awards for 2020 asphalt work. Dennis.
Mayor and councilors, at the last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about the asphalt work and the use of a local preference for some of that work. As it turns out, we only had 2 local companies that bid on the in-town paving work and the out-of-town or country paving work. Those 2 companies were Soderberg Construction and Trombley Industries. The paving in the country work, the bids were $79.50 a ton for Soderberg Construction, and Trombley Industries was at $83.75. For the in-town paving work, Soderberg Construction was $81.50, and Trombley Industries was $84.25. And so at this time, we recommend that the council approve the bid to Soderberg Construction for the paving in the country and the paving in town based on their bid numbers.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Joan, seconded by Jody to accept the 2 bids for from Carl Soderberg, $79.50 for country paving and $81.50 for in-town paving. Any questions or comments? Well, how did it line up with what we thought we were going to pay?
It's as far as the bid prices, the council has a set budget amount for asphalt, so we'll just run it out as much as we can with the money that we have. We didn't have, it was a little bit higher than we anticipated last year when we were putting the budget together, but we'll just run with as much as we can with the budget that we have based on those prices.
Okay. Maybe sometime after we get this mill rate thing figured out and get through the next couple of meetings, maybe Dave could come tell us about our plan, the 5-year plan or whatever, for both in-town and out-of-town paving. And are we keeping up with the plan of work that has been designed? Fair enough. Any other questions? Tom?
How many miles do we have to pay outside?
Dave tries to get 9 miles every year.
I remember last meeting we talked about money from last year we were going to roll over into this year's asphalt. Did that happen? So are we going to do double miles? We try to do 9, so does that mean we're going to do 18 for this year?
So as the money that was going to be used for the chip sealing project last year, which we did not do, was put into the road reserve fund. And so we captured those funds in last year's budget that could be applied toward work this year. The budget this year remained the same as far as the amount of dollars that the council allocated toward road projects. And so technically we have the dollars from last year's chip seal project and all the same dollars this year to move forward. Now, as we look at all the road projects that are out there and the criticalness of certain roads or not, Dave is able to look at, based on the funds that we have, where's the best use of those funds and how can we utilize those to maximize the dollars that we have. He's going to definitely try to get more chip seal done this year, but at the same time he's also looking at, rather than chip seal roads, can we start doing asphalt in the country roads? That,
I thought we weren't gonna chip seal anything.
right.
Okay,
So
we're not chip sealing, we're paving.
that's the intent, is that we're going to start paving some of these country roads rather than chip seal.
I guess my question is, how many miles do we have money to pave?
Okay. I don't have that right in front of me, but I think this question of having Dave come in and talk about the 5-year paving plan,
We kind
We
of
could do
touched
that.
upon this last meeting, and my big thing is that we had money for it last year. I know there's a ratio of how many miles you can chip seal versus pave,
right?
but in Dave's kind of synopsis to us earlier on in the year, part of last year, was that it's better off to pave. So we can do this many miles. And it was talked about last meeting. I just want to make sure that regardless of what we got going on in town, regardless of what we got going on anywhere else, this is how many miles we can pave. If we reach that mark, great. If we don't, this is the money it's going to cost, and this is the money we're going to roll over into next year. That's my whole deal.
Mhm.
But I want to make sure that we have the money set aside from last year. It's in that reserve, and we can use it to pave, because the roads in the country are getting pretty bad.
Yes,
That's all
we,
I'm saying.
we have those funds from last year.
If you could email me how much money we have all together, and how much money it's gonna cost us to pave out of town, and the money that was allocated from the chip seal last year to this year to pave it, and then we can kinda get our heads wrapped around on this.
Any other comments or questions? Now let's rehash this. You made the motion. Jody seconded. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. Unanimous. Item 8B, Resolution 4/3/2020 regarding local bid preference. Dennis.
Councilors, we talked during the last meeting about the establishment of a local preference, in that it seemed the consensus or the general discussion was this council wanted to retain its ability to select a local bidder if they were close enough in the bid that we felt that warranted it, that just to go to the local, regardless of them being the low bidder on a project. This resolution has been drafted. It outlines four criteria that we would look at as far as looking at a local preference. And let me push this out onto the internet cable system so others can see it as well. So first, any preferential element will be second to a determination that offered goods and/or services are equal to specific advertised criteria in a city bid request. The city may disqualify bidders based on documented concerns with past performance, quality control, responsiveness, or other factors determined to be important in achieving best value. Number 3, if all products and services offered through competitive bid processes are determined to be equivalent, then the city will consider price of goods. If costs are equivalent, the city will utilize a local vendor. The city reserves the right to award all bids, regardless of lowest bid amount. Number 4, use of the preferential standard is subject to any limitations imposed by project funding sources.
This is a new business. It's a first read to be taken under consideration for future council, not only for conversation, but for voting. Dougie.
I'd like to toss in an opinion on this, and I've written it out. Maybe it can be schmoozed in the first read to be considered.
Okay, fine.
Keep that man down.
Thank you.
verbiage that we talked about. Oops. I gotta steal one.
This next one here.
So I'll just brief through it. In an effort to be fiscally responsible with the taxpayers' money and to ensure we get equal to or better value and quality for our advertised solicitations, after determining that the goods and services meet or exceed our advertised RFQ, the city retains a right to disqualify bidders based on past performance reviews. Once all criteria has been thoroughly reviewed, the city may use preferred anyway, with local vendors using the preference chart below. I happen to agree with the tiered. I think that's a pretty good way to go. For projects less than 10,000, a 2% preference would be given. For projects between 10,000 to 1 million, the preference would be 1% plus a dollar. For projects exceeding 1 million, the preference would be 0.5% plus $5,100. Preference not to exceed 50,000. And finally, the City of Caribou reserves a right to modify the preference chart calculations. It's kind of higgly-piggly. It's some thoughts to be thrown out for consideration as we formulate or try to formulate a plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Any comments or questions or thought process? Doug, is this something similar when you go through your business projects that's on bids?
When I'm bidding out of the state of Maine, I've bid out across the country, and everyone has their own take. Each state has their own take. Of course, usually I'm bidding at state level, and the states have their own leadway for their local team, if you will. Some of the cities, if they're large enough, that put out their own RFQs that I can find have similar preferences for their local team.
So, I mean, I've never done bids like, I've never, I don't, my business doesn't require me to do
Right.
this. So this is new to me. So projects less than $10,000, you get a 2% preference. Is that kind of a standard number, or, I mean?
Yeah, I mean, they vary, but I think that's a fair number. And that says that a local that on a $10,000 bid can be 2% higher than a non.
Okay. Okay.
And these are,
Good. Jody?
When you say local, do you mean, what's local? Just
Caribou.
city? Just Caribou. Okay.
and I'll tell you the reasoning, and without mentioning the company's names, there's two incidences that come to mind. One is an electrical firm that wasn't even approached on a bid here for an educational department that passed the contractor who was brought to the table on the interstate while he was going south. That one was coming north. You get the point. Our local contractor on this case, wasn't even invited. But he's going south to earn the money to come back here and pay his taxes. Two was a local contractor on a project for the library. And I think don't hold me exact, but it was around $1,000 that he lost that bid. Again, as I recall, it was a Bangor outfit that won it, which is just a crying shame for $1,000. It should have been some leadway. Both people that I'm talking about pay a lot of taxes here in town, and it's, to me, if as a contractor, that would be an insult to lose a bid for $1,000 to somebody that's out of Bangor. And on the other hand, I'm hearing and I'm being, paying a lot of taxes, tax base. Anyway, that's kind of the thought process for that.
Okay? Anybody else? Thank you very much. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Doug. Item 8B. This is the part where we're thinking if anybody would like to go over the budget, and do we put it on the November ballot? Before we do that, we have to go to the lawyer opinion on how things work and a resolution versus a amendment. How's it work now?
Charter amendments versus revisions or
Revisions,
rewrites.
yeah, okay. And different projects for different ones. And so this is just the start of, even if we want to have any of these ideas, even to go forward. So the first one is dealing with Introduction Ordinance 1, 2020 series to amend the city charter, adjusting the budget process time frame. Dennis.
As has been requested, this has been drafted such that the current city budget begins the process of being revised in roughly September. That's when the manager is directed by charter to start reaching out to the department heads and begin compiling information together, reviewing numbers from an operational aspect and a capital aspect. All of that information gets compiled. The manager is supposed to review that, come up with a budget to present to the city council basically the first part of November. The council then has until the middle of December to review all of those budget numbers and to decide, again by charter, you have to adopt the expense budget for the next year. And then by charter, the process is that come April of the year after the new budget's been adopted, the manager is then supposed to provide income projections to the council to see if the income projections line up with the budget that's been passed. And then the council throughout the year is able to refine the budget and make changes as far as reducing the expense budget if they see fit to. This ordinance makes it so that the budget process would start roughly the same time frame as far as reaching out to the department heads, beginning to compile information, but the budget does not get presented in November when you have a council that's getting ready to change seats, so to speak, depending on election results. The budget would get presented to the new council by January 15th so that the new sitting council has a full ability to review the numbers for the year. And at the same time, budget projections are presented for revenue so that you'll have operations, capital, and revenue being presented to the council the first part of January for the council to review. And then we also have a 2-month period of time frame in which there would be additional presentations by department heads, public hearings, public forums, and then by the third Monday in March, the council would adopt the budget for the year. The language in here indicates that until the council approves a budget for the year, we basically look back at the previous year's budget and proportionally apply that budget for, say, January, February, until the new budget is approved, which would cover January 1st to December. And we would just need to make adjustments as we go until the budget is approved. So essentially that's what this does, is it changes the time frame that the council is going to receive the budget to begin reviewing it, the time frame the council has to approve the expense budget, and obviously who is going to be approving the expense budget for the next year.
I asked to have this placed on the agenda because it's an item that I would like to have discussed amongst us. And I'm very much in favor of moving this date. I find twofold. When the city council has to make decisions in December, there are just way too many unknowns. There's a lot of usage of the word "we assume." We assume this, we'll assume that, and if we do it all this way, this is what it's going to look like. Assuming a lot. I've often found it kind of hard to understand how are we setting an expense budget without talking it in the context of what are we getting for income. And the third, why not let the sitting council decide that year's budget? So it's a multi-reason why I'd like to see this on there. So just looking at it, it looks pretty close to the way we used to do it 8 years ago. And then the charter got changed, correct?
Right.
I mean, as far as we know. And it obviously will need some fine tuning, like say, if it does make it to the list of things that will go to a lawyer for opinion. Can it be done? So, does any other counselors have any comments or questions? This is a first read. We'll talk about it, look it over, and bring it up. Jody?
I think we discussed this, and I think you brought it up a couple of meetings ago. This is considered a minor revision, so that we don't have to open the whole charter up as what happened last time. When we
Right.
made the and then, right or wrong, all kinds of things got changed, right? This would just, whether it passes or fails, won't open up the charter for any other potential revisions or...
The state code outlines the process for amending the charters as well as revising the charter. They have a distinction of terms, but really very little distinction in process. But in talking with city's legal counsel, the feeling was this was a minor amendment where you're just adjusting timeframes. You're not adjusting powers or authorities. And so the charter process in this one that we're going through now is an amendment. The council can adopt this ordinance, but it is subject to being made into effect until the citizens approve it by vote on the next election or in November's election. So, but it does not open up the entire charter. We don't need a charter commission to review this, where it's a minor amendment to the charter.
This ordinance, if introduced, or will be introduced, whatever, tonight, then it would go to a public hearing at a future time, and then we would have to say, okay, then it's going to the referendum.
Yes. Right.
Thank you.
Any other? Hugh?
As we discuss this particular change...
Do you have a microphone?
It's right here.
Okay.
As we discuss this change, I'd be interested if anybody could come up with any advantage to keeping it the same. Right? I mean, in other words, there doesn't really seem to be an advantage to keep doing it the same way.
Yep.
The process will only be improved by getting everything lined up.
And the only thing that we've talked about, if I might just address that, is that under the current process, we have an expense budget that is approved before the year starts. So everybody knows January 1st, this is how much money you have to expend until the council may modify the budget. So, but, so, I mean, that really is the strength behind the current process, is that we know January 1 what money we're dealing with. But certainly, as long as we have provisions in place for, like I say, until the council adopts a budget in March, these are the rules that we're playing by, and everybody understands that, and it's spelled out, which this ordinance does, I think we'd be fine. Either way, the numbers can't be put into the Trio software, one of those situations we're dealing with, until the council approves the capital operations and authorizes the income projections to be what they are. So we're, that's taking place in March for the past couple of years. This outlines it'd be by the middle of March in this process. So it really doesn't change that as far as the reporting side of things.
Okay.
I just,
Joan?
oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I just have one more comment that I asked Dennis about earlier this evening. If this is read into the record tonight, and then you have so many days to have a public hearing, we probably should explain to the public how, because they can't come to a public hearing because of the restrictions, how to project their thoughts if they have something to say about this when we hold a public hearing.
That's a very good point. How do you have a public hearing in today's environment?
There are many communities that are asking for comments to be written up front and submitted to the city to be read into the record, similar to what we did tonight with the public forum. Some cities are providing Zoom meetings where the public they contact administration ahead of time to say they want to speak, and those participants are then provided connections to a Zoom meeting, and they would be able to connect like we've done in the past. I think we've got all those bugs worked out, even though we're not using the technology tonight, but they would, in a sense, connect through Zoom, be able to read their comments or speak their piece through the Zoom process. Other communities I know they're just broadcasting a Zoom connection to the whole community, and anybody can connect to the meeting, and we just have to monitor who's speaking administratively through the computer, one at a time. So there are ways of doing it. It's definitely not what we've done in the past, being able to interact and see people face to face and see body language and whatnot, but we can do it. The time frame for this being adopted, as far as getting on the November ballot, the council would not have to take action on this really until June to still be able to get it onto the ballot in November. So if the council wanted to even not introduce it tonight, but just treat it as truly a first read and point of discussion, we could do that as well.
I was hoping that we could just wait another meeting or two before we introduce this officially, in case there's other items that we would like to review on the charter. And then Dennis could handle the items all at once instead of having 1 week this and then another week another thing, and then so end of June is our deadline to tell you if we do or do not want things to be placed on to start the process.
I would say your first meeting in June is when you'd want to introduce it if you're going to move it forward.
Okay, first meeting in June. Jody?
I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but there is 2 ordinances on here related to the same thing. If those go through, those would be 2 separate items on the referendum?
Yes.
Correct, okay.
Okay. Doug?
I just wanted to say, and I apologize if I sound like a broken record or if I've said this before, but I spoke with one of the charter commissioners on this very topic, which I was very much in favor of, because it was an effort to control the runaway spending that was happening. And that is my personal opinion. It was to help control, to get the council's mind on the necessities only. Having said that, I think what I personally need to do is reflect on what did it prevent? Did it work? Right now, I can see both sides of the coin. I'm riding the razor's edge, personally. So I guess that's, to me, I got to see, did it work? Did we actually curtail runaway spending? Or is it come in other means? Has it come in under other guises and still everybody's gotten, the Cadillac of this or that or the next thing? I just want to clarify that I was and am a supporter, but I do see and understand both sides of the coin here. More so than I did then. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you. Item 8C, introduction of ordinance 220 series to amend the city charter allowing council to increase the annual expense budget depending on revenues. Once again, this is an item that I put onto the table. You have it in your packet. How do I say this? The reason I placed it on that I'd like to have it for discussion is because doing it in December, there's just so many unknowns. I didn't think the governing body, whoever it was at the time, should be held back from making decisions. If the first ordinance goes through, if the first ordinance were to go to the public vote, in other words, we don't have to make up our minds until March 15th. I believe that gives the council approximately 4 more months of knowledge, 4 more months of letting those variables be known. In 4 more months, the word assumption won't be used quite as much. We'll have an idea what the state legislature, there's just so much more knowledge that can be accomplished by determining our budget March, April, that even though I put it on here, I don't think it needs to go forward. It's just my personal opinion. In other words, once the budget is set in March, then that's what it is. And so I know it's confusing that I've asked to discuss it, but if the first one, if we're staying back in the December mode of deciding the budget, then I guess I'm going to be in favor of, well, then don't handicap the council quite yet. So that was the purpose of me putting that on there. So I guess you could say I've kind of changed my mind on it after thinking about it and looking at it and understanding the importance of the process. Anybody else have any comments, questions? You?
It might be early, but if we took a consensus on the first ordinance, then we wouldn't necessarily have to discuss the second one. If
Correct.
we could do that, if we wanted.
We could. Yeah. Doug? Dennis?
So just for the public's benefit, this ordinance, just again to walk through it a little bit, is the current charter says that once the expense budget is set, the council cannot change that other than to reduce it, depending upon revenues. There are 2 sections of the charter that would be affected by this amendment, but if this ordinance, if it moves forward and would get approved by the voters, would effectively allow the council, if revenues are coming in better than expected, then the council could authorize additional expenses in the budget year or increase the expense budget. But without this amendment, the council cannot exceed its expenses.
Okay. Well, then, does anyone have an objection if we did a kind of a consensus thing on the first one? If there's no objection?
I don't have an objection. I'm only going to say that no matter what we think, whichever way we go, if it goes to the voters, it's up to them whether it passes or not anyway.
Correct.
So
This is only a vote.
just if you want to go through with it at all.
There's kind of a standing rule that if we're not going to, the city manager shouldn't go down the road unless 4 councilors or more agree. That was the theory behind this. And just to see if the time should be spent even talking about it, you know what I mean? And like you said, maybe we don't even have to talk about 8 see anymore. You know. Well,
They are independent. I mean, that's why there are two different ordinances. The one is simply a process. This one is an actual power that would be given to the council. And even if the first ordinance gets passed, would the council still want to have the ability to flex the expense budget in the future?
correct.
You know, so I guess from my standpoint, I would rather that there be more power established if the citizens are willing to give it with regards to the budget than to say we're just going to rely on one or the other.
Okay.
That's your vote?
You know, you can let them both run through. They are two very distinct things, and they may or may not pass both of them or either of them. But
Okay. Do you mind if we wait 2 more weeks, until the next meeting to do some voting or consensus concept, and we can just think about this, and maybe during the course of a couple of weeks, some counselor type us your thoughts, and you'll have a chance to hear from citizens of Caribou.
Yeah,
You know, over the next couple of weeks on the issue. I mean, that's the purpose of first reads and second reads. So, okay, let's do it that way. We'll just wait but I just wanted to, I'm not leaning so much as, even though I'm putting it on there, I'm not leaning so much for it now on the second one. Just,
one more question on that.
Oh,
We
yeah.
have, I think you probably explained it, and we've already talked with our attorney about this, or is that still part of the process?
the charter revision or amendment process requires that once an ordinance is adopted, we have to seek legal opinion on the change. Is it a legal, lawful change to make in the charter? I have already talked with our legal counsel on these. He indicates that he could turn around on this pretty quickly, that he can't see that there are any legal ramifications, or these would be lawful changes. He would not have to try to dig into something to give us an opinion to that effect.
So, but we can't really technically do that until the ordinance has been adopted. That's to move forward.
Right, because once the ordinance is adopted, then we know for sure the language that they're supposed to provide an opinion on.
Oh, okay.
okay,
That's all.
thank you. Item 8D, discussion and possible action regarding tax acquired properties bid list. Dennis.
Councilors, every year this list hopefully doesn't grow too much, but we do have quite a few properties on the list this year of lands and properties that were acquired due to delinquent taxes. And so in your packet is a list of those and the suggested minimum sale price that we would put out for bid. I know there was a question Councilor Terrio asked about a property earlier. I didn't get back to her. The minimum bid price is generally 1/3 the assessed value of the properties. And we'd like to look at that and say if it's 1/3 of the assessed value, it's not official policy, but it's been practice. That typically takes care of any outstanding fees, interests, and taxes that need to be collected for the time frame that we have. You had asked about which property was it?
It was Gale and Tracy, the very end of it. The assessed value is $22,900, and the only thing that's owed, it looks like, is CUD, but you're asking for $24,800 as a minimum bid?
It's land only. I see what you're saying. Let me
It's only 0.14 acre.
let me pull up our trio information and see if we can. It might be.
I'm thinking maybe it should be
2480 instead of
2,400 or 2,480, something like that.
let me get with our finance department and confirm what that is. I see the discrepancy there.
Yeah.
So we can,
We added 22.
but the process we have to go through is outlined through the tax acquired property policy of the city, that the council needs to authorize the putting of these properties out to bid. The minimum sale price, again, is a suggested minimum bid price. We typically will put these out for a couple of weeks, and any bids that we receive are brought back to the council for consideration in a future meeting. You can see that some of these properties, the very top one has been on this list for 5 years running now, and some others for 3 years and 2 years. So
On number 15, who owns the land?
currently, the city owns all of these.
Thought so, okay.
Right, but the previous owner would have been Terrio Lawn Care.
Right, but isn't that down there where, like, there was a building down there? City owned the land, but the building that was torn down was owned by an individual, but it was on city land? Because some of them had land and building, and this one's just got building. So does someone else own the land? And is it already, or does it already belong to the city, so you just have to see, because some of that property down there was the land itself. I think it was the S.W. Collins or something when that went down, that they owned the building but not the land.
We'll look that up. Based on the information that's in the spreadsheet, it would be just the building that is for sale, right? Lot 183 ON. A 4-door garage. Just received a text from our assessor. She indicates that the state of Maine owns the land.
Oh, probably where the railroad was or something, maybe.
Thank you, Penny, for
Yes.
watching the meeting tonight. I'm afraid I don't have an answer on the last one, though, on the Galen Tracy property at 25 Liberty Street. It may be that, I know on Liberty Street, we recently just tore down a building. I think that might be it. And so part of that is recuperation of costs that we incurred in demolishing the building.
Dennis, who comprises this list and gives this to you?
Our tax collector.
Carl?
Yes.
Doug, did you have something you wanted to?
Dennis, the amount on the books, is that the taxes owed?
That would include the, as I understand it, the tax amount on the books is just the taxes. It's not all of the fees and interest that go along with it.
But it's the owed amount.
Yes.
The unpaid balance. I'm an advocate for removing the property. I think that we get what is owed to the taxpayers of this community, plus the CUD money, and put it out there as minimum bid. I think if we try and to go for broke, we're only hurting the community. I think a fair way to approach it is collect every nickel on taxation and fees, plus the CUD, and use it as a minimum bid, and get this off our books. Get it back working for the community. Thank you.
We can do that?
If the council wants to do, you're saying that the taxes owed, fees and interest, plus anything owed to CUD, set that as the minimum bid amount.
We've got to, I think it's our job to collect for the city, the taxpayers. But above and beyond trying to earn a margin, in this case, I just think we're shooting ourselves in the foot. Let's get what is rightfully owed and not a nickel more, and make it more attractive with the minimum bid by doing that, and hopefully clean this list up and be done with it. That way the taxpayers, nobody has lost. We're all covered, fees.
I agree. I won't wait for him to look up all this.
I'm sorry,
all
I'm sorry, go ahead, no, everybody's
I
doing
agree,
good.
Because I think a lot of these are a little too high, and I think if they were brought down to where we recoup the expenses, they'll get on the tax rolls a lot faster, and that's where we want them to be. We don't want them sitting here for 5, 6, 7 years. And I think we need to bring some of these minimum bids down to let them, to see if they'll go a little quicker.
Go ahead, Jody.
Just on that, initially, I think, wasn't it determined that the idea was I'm agreeable with lowering it, but the idea was is that we'd recoup a little bit of money and we got to go tear down 4 buildings, and that money was going to go into a fund, but we never have gotten enough back to ever cover those costs, have we? I mean, if we got to spend $20,000 to knock a house down, we never make $20,000 by selling these other properties, and they just sit there stagnant without them being back on the tax roll.
You'll see at the bottom of the list are 5 properties that were tax acquired, and due to the conditions of the homes, are really uninhabitable and need to be torn down. And so we've been through the process before where we said if somebody wants to come and tear them down, they could have the properties.
Here you go.
But the result was they stripped out anything that was of value and left the building standing, and the city ended up acquiring the properties back again. And so it didn't really benefit us to go that route. And so right now, those 5 homes, we have them slated for, they will be on our demolition project schedule, and then we'll eventually just sell the lots without any building on them and try to recoup what we can.
That's not even all of them. You got a number 30, 398 West Prescott Road. That's condemned. The old Burby residence. No trade on the door, so that needs to be moved down to condemned. I mean, I took a good hard look at this list again and say, okay, what's condemned? What are we gonna have to spend money on to, if we have to tear down? What are the asbestos costs gonna cost us? And you look under and everybody's favorite topic, Merlin 1 LLC. There's nothing in amount owed to CUD. So this is frustrating. When you don't have all the information, you cannot make an educated decision. Now, I know we've talked about this millions and millions of times, how much we owe to the CUD, but it's always nice to get a little refresher. And when I see a blank area, how much they owe you, Hugh?
It's a little over 70,000. I got something, not to add to that, but a lot of the homes here that are condemned, are we automatically foreclosing, or is there a decision that we are trying to make to maybe waive foreclosure so we don't get stuck with these projects? I mean, we don't. as
I know we had,
as the lien holder, we have the ability to
Right.
waive foreclosure. Why
Right.
don't we do that so we don't take these projects on?
and I know we've had this discussion last year with the Merlin One property, and that's one of the processes that we'll be modifying this year so that we do bring these things and have that discussion before the lien foreclosure date, so that we can, as you say, waive the liens.
The other item I had here, it seems to me the offloading process that we have now is kind of I'll call it a batch process. However many of these properties we have under this umbrella get kind of pushed out in a batch. You know, so there's a long list. It gets put in the paper. It gets put on the website. Is there a way to kind of incorporate the idea that Joan and Doug had? Set the price, and it's just, instead of a batch process, it's a rolling process. The first person to come with that minimum, it's yours. So we're not kind of hoarding these things and doing it 4 times a year. It's just a continuous process. Is that, can we
So
do that? Or?
the process generally is we publish this out and make it known. If anybody comes in during the course of the year with a bid at any point, then we bring those back to the council for you to consider.
At the minimum, it's set right now.
Right.
Okay.
Doug?
In 2008, 9, and Mark can correct me, but I thought we had in place, we put in place an SOP that said tax assessor and code enforcement would look at the property, and that property had to have a value of, I'm saying, around $14,000 before the city was going to take it for taxes. Have we followed that? Have we, I mean, there are some of these incidents we shouldn't be involved in. I mean, in my opinion, we're taking, we gotta use other avenues, I guess what I'm saying. We should have that unless it got lost in the shuffle. I don't know, but we went through this on trailers. We were taking trailers that had $200 or $300 in taxes, and it cost us $5,000 to clean it up. And that's why that was put into effect back then. And I'm just, what happened to it? Did it? My understanding, it was going to be the city's standing operating procedure for dealing with tax-acquired properties. Maybe if it's not, then we should definitely put it in and then research alternative avenues on these properties that don't attain a $14,000 mark. Agreed with it, I guess.
I remember the policy being put into place. I do not remember if there was a dollar amount, though. And I do remember it dealing with trailers. I do remember that. Joan was next, and then Jody.
I think part of the reason why we started taking these again was because of the new blight thing that they're working on and trying to get rid of the blight. But I'm wondering, are there any grants available out there to help cities get rid of the blight that they take? Is there anybody looking into grants, or do we have a grant writer or anything like that that can apply for maybe some grants that might be available for something like this?
We know that the CDBG funds can be used for blight cleanup.
Right, but I'm looking for free money somewhere out there, you know?
Free money, yep. There are certainly, like I said, state CDBG funds can be utilized for blight cleanup. If you apply for it and you're awarded it, you can get so much.
Do we
But
have
there are-
anybody looking into this and applying for some of these funds or anything?
CDBG funds are an annual application process, yeah. And so we can make application again for that this year. Generally, we've been reserving our applications for CDBG funds to be more business oriented, something that's going to help a business get off the ground or start working. But we could be a little more selfish, so to speak, and say we just want funds for the city to be able to do the blight cleanup.
I think it would be more advantageous to try to get some of the blight cleaned up, and then maybe we'll have somebody wanting to come into the city to put something up because it's clean.
I haven't talked to Ken on this subject for a couple of months because of this virus thing, and then just everyone's just kind of on hold and waiting for the blight. I do know that was one of the items he was looking at, different programs that are available, and we're waiting for that report. And I know he's at the time he had found some that were very interesting, not with this particular one subject, but he was still digging. So it is being looked at. This virus thing has kind of put a lot of things on hold for a while. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Jody, you wanted.
Yeah, I was just going back to, we were saying whether we should or shouldn't have taken these at the time, or, you know, as you were mentioning, whether there's a value or not. I guess maybe we just need to be more aggressive on dishing these out, on getting rid of what we have. Whether that means how we lower those bids. Do we just want to recover back what we've got invested? But we need to get this list from 47 or whatever that number is down to about 5 would be great, so it just doesn't compile.
You will notice that some of those minimum bids are less than the amount that's even owed now. For instance, at the very top, we've got a property that's been on there for 5 years. And trying to offload it, the minimum sale price is only $2,500, but tax amount on the books is almost $5,600. So,
Couldn't we look at, I mean, and I'm just throwing this spitball in here, but if that's a property that's been around for 5 years, how about talking to the abutting landowners and seeing if we could entice them into splitting the costs and growing each one of their lots, maybe?
I mean, when you get down to $2,500 and it's been on the books for 5 years, maybe we can give it away.
Or that.
I'm not saying that's what we're going to do. I'm just saying there's options.
right?
I'd be interested to see if these standard operating procedures exist and are being, and if standard operating procedures that do not address some of these issues that we're facing now, that maybe we have to address some of these issues. And this, that lower Linden, lower Washington Street, yeah, it's been on there forever. So after a certain amount of years,
We do have a city-approved tax-acquired property disposal policy, and so we are following that. I'll make sure that you all get a copy of it, so you can see it.
disposal or acquisition?
Disposal.
Disposal. I'm more worried about the acquisition.
Right. The suggestion tonight of having a dollar amount that we use as a trigger, that's the first I've heard of that, so but we can do some research.
Dennis, in updating this, could they put the number of years on down through all of them? I mean, I assume they're all this year, the ones that don't have anything.
Right.
But some of those ones that are posted condemned have been on more than 1 year.
Okay, yeah, we can update that information.
Because if I understood it, even if, well, there's not even a minimum bid on those. Anyways, if we knew the number of years, that helps make up. It's more information that we can make a decision on.
I know you have a tax-acquired property policy. Maybe it's been a while since you've seen the policy, and I can get that to you before you leave tonight.
Okay.
I put my hand on that.
Any other questions or Hugh?
I mean, not to belabor the point, but you could add a column for the date that each property landed on this list, add a cell for the current date, another cell for the current mill rate, and you could have a total column for what it's costing the city for having these just on this list and not the other taxpayer. And I bet you if you did it on here, the number would be huge. In other words, that's kind of your clock. How big is that number getting? What does it cost us just by having them sit on this list? It would be a pretty quick exercise.
You mean with revenue loss?
Right, right, just that assessed value, the mill rate, the date it's entered the list, and then today's date, and you could total that in a column, and it would tell you what that's, the total cost of the city of having these things on the list. It'd be a big number.
Good idea. Okay, any other comments or question on the list?
So
Yeah.
do you want to have this come back to you with a minimum sale price set based on just the minimums? Is that what I'm hearing?
We can look at it, yes.
I'd like to see I'd like to see the nut that we're losing here out on, the dollar, the cost plus revenue loss.
You don't want to see that.
Yeah. Well, we should take it into consideration on all our expense, and we're losing.
Yeah.
Jody?
You're suggesting bring us back a new list with the minimum bids based on just what we're owed?
That's my take. But
Taxes, interest, fees, and anything the CUD.
And the CUD.
I mean, if that's what the council wants to do, you could just authorize us to do that tonight, and we can go through and we can bring it back as a report format. This is what those numbers played out to be.
We don't need to know what the numbers are. I mean, it's not going to make a difference.
It is what it is.
It is what it is,
Right.
what we owed, if we can put it out that way.
Then we don't have to wait 2 more weeks
We
to
don't have to wait 2 weeks. I'll
get
make
the
that a
information
motion.
out.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Moved by Jody, seconded by Joan. Now, what's the motion again?
Well, we put these out with a minimum bid of what is owed to the city, CUD, interest, fees, whatever cost is incurred to the city, and put that out in our usual bid format in the paper and on the website as the minimum bid.
But that doesn't address the cost of having to tear everything down, because that's a much bigger aspect.
And that is the case with that last one there. We tore that property down, and so that's why that one is more. And I would consider that part of our cost that we would include in that.
Okay. Yep,
Yeah,
I'm following it now.
okay.
I got a handle.
I'll include that in the motion then on that particular property.
I'd do get rid of it before we'd have to.
Okay. Moved by Jody, seconded by Joan. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. 8E, discussion regarding city investments. Dennis.
Sorry. We've been watching or anticipating the maturing of our $3 million CD at Rustic Savings and Loan, and we were notified last week that CD is actually 2 CDs, one for $100,000 and the other for $2.9 million. We thought they were going to be maturing at the same time, but it turns out the larger one is going to be expiring in another 3 months. We looked at the ability to just renew the $100,000 for another 3 months so that they would both mature at the same time and be able to handle the full $3 million at once. We have talked about the council investment committee getting together and discussing, strategizing how we want to move forward with these monies. It was eye-opening, to say the least, as we looked at the reinvestment potential of just the $100,000. The CD market right now is in the tank. And, we've been getting 3% on all of this money up until now, and current CD rates are less than 1%. So we've looked around. In some cases, well, in the case of, for instance, the city's checking account, we get more than 1% in our checking account. And so it's given us some time to look at, should we just maybe move some things into the checking account, and rather than try to invest in the CD market right now. At this point, the current CD holder was willing to match the interest rate that we were getting on our checking account. It is in a separate financial institution. And so right now what we've done is we've just renewed the $100,000 at essentially the same interest rate we would be getting from our checking account, but renewed it with this restricted savings and loan for a 3-month period. And then in 3 months we'll have, again, the maturing of the $100,000 plus the $2.9 million, and we'll have to look at between now and then what strategies we want to look at with reinvesting these funds so that we can maximize the benefit to the citizens. We generate about $90,000 a year in interest off of this. We anticipate, with the knowledge that we have, our revenue from interest this year on this money is going to be down about $25,000. And so something that we want to be looking at very seriously as we come closer to that $2.9 million investment maturing.
When I read this, I was kind of curious as to what was the thought process by having the 2 CDs. Do you know any historical reasons on any of this?
It has something to do with the ability to insure the CD.
Oh, okay. Got it. They insure only up to so much?
I believe that was the case.
Okay. Okay. Doug?
I just want to chime in that I think the investment committee should meet. We should be doing some brainstorming here to look at avenues, safe avenues, if there's any out there that can yield better returns than for the people's money.
Okay.
I believe when we did this last time, when the money came back to us, when I was here, it went out to an RFQ, and there were several different options. There was some investment choices, and then the council decided that that was the safest investment at the time. I don't remember how many people, 3 or 4 institutions, gave us portfolios and options. So, if correctly, this was a simple option because it was a CD, and it was.
So they gave you options like, and I'm just throwing out government bonds and all those options that are out there that are considered safe.
This, yeah, I believe so. That was at the time, but that was a very straight return.
Okay.
Manages and looks after the finances of this city.
It falls on my shoulders primarily, but I do have a finance director, Carl Grant, who manages these things.
I was a little taken aback the other day when you called. Of course, I was driving a tractor, but why don't we know when our CDs mature? Why was this all of a sudden we get a phone call from the bank? This is taxpayers' money. This is our money. It's community's money. When I get a loan or invest money, I know when things are going to mature and when I have to pay stuff, and I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't know when to pay my taxes. Why didn't we know this was going to happen so that way the financial committee could meet? We could have talked about this last meeting. it's frustrating for me to continually have this happen. Happened with Merlin 1, happened a couple other times, and here we see it again. Now, this isn't as severe as some of the things in the past, but it brings up the same fire that keeps burning. Who's watching this stuff? You can't do it all, Dennis. You're running a city. You have somebody do this for you. You have Carl do this for you. And then he goes to you. It's the chain of command.
Right. So from a financial standpoint,
Hold on a second.
okay.
Brings me right back to this list. It's not finished. I like Carl. He's a nice guy. I'm just saying, we've got to pay attention to what we're doing. And I get there's a lot going on. We're running a city. I get that. There's a lot going on. But we've got to be focused on where the money is and where it's going. And for me to hear that the bank had to call us and remind us of when our city matured, that doesn't seem right to me. So all I'm saying is if we can plan ahead, this is something we can plan ahead for. One thing we can't plan ahead for is viruses. That's something that nobody knew was going to happen. I know a CD is going to mature. So I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus here, but all I'm saying is we've got to start being mindful of this. And I thought we had that taken care of with Merlin 1. Now it's rearing its ugly head again.
So since you brought up the tax acquired list again, I know we've passed that, but that information is correct. That is all the legal obligations that are associated with those properties are on that paper. We've checked that.
I get that.
Okay.
But you have,
So I know you reference a blank that's on there, and that blank is there because there currently is no legal obligations for,
I also
Yeah.
referenced a house that was condemned 2 years ago.
Right.
Should be down here. Anyway.
so, but yes, we know what's on the books. This $3 million, it's on the books. He's been monitoring it, but I understand that to know that there's one that's a portion of it that is maturing 3 months ahead of the other. I get it.
Okay.
Well, isn't it kind of a standard operating procedure that whether you accept it or not, you throw a bid out there or you throw a request for a bid on to all the different financial institutions? Hey, what can you give us for an interest rate on X amount of dollars?
That I believe is, well, I know in participating with the Heuristic Waste Solutions Board, they do that with all of their investments. They contact all the financial institutions around and they say, we have this pot of money, give us the best rate that you can for a certain period of time. And I guess that's what we're looking at from the Council Investment Committee side of things is, can we get together, strategize on that, knowing the market that we have. We may want to look at splitting some of these funds up, not investing them all entirely based on the current market conditions.
Okay.
So,
Well, we've had two requests then for this financial committee to meet. I turn to Jody. What's the date?
I don't know.
Pick one. It's the power you wield when you're chairman.
I don't know what days work very well for you and Doug.
Pick one.
Well, with everybody because it's open.
Yeah, just pick one. I mean, the only thing I'm going to say, I prefer early in the morning or late at night. One or the other. The middle of the day deal doesn't work very well for me.
4 o'clock or in the afternoon. Or later.
Morning, afternoon.
Afternoon would work better for me.
4 o'clock on next Monday, 4 o'clock.
The 11th? Finance meeting. Anyone's invited, correct?
we have the three counselors that are on that with myself and Carl Grant as advisors to that group. But
Any other counselor can show up?
if, yeah.
As long as we don't exceed 10, right? Is that still the rule?
We're going to have to advertise it as a public meeting anyway, so it doesn't matter how many counselors show up at that point.
Yeah, it doesn't,
Okay,
any of the
got it.
meetings are public, right? Yeah.
On the 11th at 4 o'clock.
Will it be on camera so that I can view it from home while I watch the kids?
If we host it in this room, we can put it on camera.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Dennis?
Dennis, what'd you say we're currently earning?
3%.
On all of it? I thought you just said we're below that,
The new CD rates,
the new ones.
the
so
new CD market rates are less than 1%.
I'm earning 3%.
And there are state requirements and guidelines as far as what we can invest in with public money, and so we'll make sure we have that information for next Monday's meeting as well.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you. Under item number 9, old business, 9A, discussion and possible action regarding the 2020 local stimulus package. We've had 3 comments tonight on the subject. I'd just like to take a minute and the historical part of this, from my point of view, as one of 7, we started the budget process with a 2.2 mil increase back in December, 1st of December. And that wasn't counting the school, and it wasn't counting the county budgets. 2.2 mil. And we just said, stop. Let's not dig anymore, just stop. And with that, we asked the employees minimal raise, if any, minimal COLA, if any, until we figured it out. Because a 2.2 mil increase, I thought, from the consensus of the council, was not acceptable. And we slowly worked through it over time. But once again, we had a deadline, December 15th, and we had to make up our minds on what we knew at the time, assuming a lot of stuff. And the decision was made. As time went on, sometime in March, numbers are starting to come together. We got that ambulance thing figured out. We were looking at $140,000 of additional revenue sharing. Yeah, the city employees did a great job. They brought that budget back down, management team, and got it back down to, I think we ended up, don't quote me, with about $140,000 of additional spending. And we ended up bringing that 2.2 mil increase down. And then along comes the surprise that not only that, but we had 300, don't quote me on the exact number, but we had almost $300,000 left over from the 2019 budget. $475,000 of additional money came in because we aligned the ambulance department fee that was being charged to the Caribou taxpayers. We aligned that with the service fee that we were charging surrounding communities. And I got to be quite frank, we're sitting here looking pretty good in March, 1st of March. I brought forward the idea of passing out a $500 gift certificate to the city employees, knowing that they didn't get any raises during the course of the year. And we had this extra money. And at the time, it was my opinion, there's some money here that everybody can get a little something. Not a 2.2 mil increase, but now we can give out a little bit of money in different formats. And this was one of them. I wanted to let the public know that I sensed a lukewarm reception from fellow councilors. Not that they were against it, but not that they were for it. And then something happened. It was this virus thing struck. And it took this beautiful picture that we had, theoretically this money that we were going to have to look at, and how could we now spend it. And it really turned it upside down. And then along came the idea, hey, you know, how can we help businesses? How can we help taxpayers? How can we be part, not that we caused this virus, not that we're going to solve this virus, but how can we be positive? How can we be upbeat? How can we show our support? Symbolic as it is, it was our way. And when the idea came along and it said, hey, why don't we give them the $500 as long as they spend it with Caribou businesses? I saw a lukewarm turn into, that was not a bad idea, from my fellow councilors. And we continued to explore it. And we thought of all the nuances. Yes, last city council meeting, we had the first read. That's basically the history of it. People think it's the proper way to do it. Some people don't think it's the proper way to do it. You know, you can't satisfy or please everybody, as the story goes. I suppose there's always going to be people that think they didn't get enough. And there will always be people that think the other guy got too much. All we can do is thread the needle to the best of our ability. I can only tell you from personal experiences, at the end of the year, we divvy up the profits on the farm. If there are any profits, we divvy them up. And they get divvied up not only to the family members, but to employees. And I am shocked at how well received it is by the employees on my farm, and I just couldn't believe that city employees wouldn't think it was a good idea either. However, that's the history of it. I want to go through with it. I want to continue it with the thought process. We're working through the struggles of the virus, and the money shortened up mighty fast. But we're going to work our way through it with a positive attitude, with positive thoughts that it can be done. And I'd like to entertain a motion. Well, let me entertain, that's the history. Let me put the motion on the table, and then we'll if anybody has any discussion, if you don't mind. And as I said last council meeting, what I'd like to do is anybody that works for the city of Caribou, currently works for the city of Caribou, is eligible for $500,000. I thought we didn't have that much money. For $500 for full-time employees, $250 for part-time employees. When you have a $10 million budget and you spend $6.1 million on labor, don't quote me on the exact amount, but I'm pretty close, and you spend $6.1 million on labor, you know, another $40,000 is a token. It's meant in the spirit of, we're grateful that you're working for us. We really are. To think $40,000 is going to make that much difference in what's being lost out there in the public sector, private sector, excuse me, what's being lost out there in the private sector, it's a token. It's our effort to be part of a system to bring this thing back, get everybody in the mood of understanding the importance of local, investing in your employees, investing in your local businesses. That's all this is meant to be. It's a one-time deal that we thought we could do in a hurry. So the motion was to give $500 to each full-time employee, $250 to part-time.
So moved.
Second that.
Can I ask you one question before you actually put the motion on? Because you talked about amending it from, well, I should back up. There was an employee apparently in one of the departments that was hired on after 2019 and 2020, and another employee was going to donate his portion of the stimulus because this new employee wasn't eligible. Has that been amended so the new employees, that's been amended, so this employee does not have to give up the old employee does not have to give up his stimulus or his or her stimulus for the new one that came into the department?
My understanding from the last council meeting was that this would apply to all current employees
That is here and now,
that are full-time and permanent part-time.
right?
Yep.
So that
Yes.
eliminated that problem for the old
Correct.
employees. Okay. Yep.
Correct.
Yes.
You were correct. Initially, it wasn't.
Right.
But when that came to light
Right.
and we thought about it, we said,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. That's right. We never occurred
Right.
that somebody new came on.
Yeah.
But it never occurred that we were going to lose 3 police officers either when this whole thing started. So, and that would be all taken
I
place.
just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that somebody
Yep.
didn't have to give up their stimulus
Yep.
for somebody.
Yep. I want to put on an amendment. So there's a motion by Nicole, second by Jody, to do this. Now, I want to make an amendment. It came to our attention, just like the employee that came on after 2009, just recently, that an employee, Mrs. Hill, was only a part-time status in 2019 because of an illness. She had to leave the employment. And I know you're not supposed to venture off and break, but this isn't a policy to break the concept, but that's got to be one of the nicest women that this city's had the honor of her employment, that the amendment will read that she gets an honorary from the mayor status of full-time employment for the year 2019 as working for 2019. I know it's probably not a legal way of doing it. It's just being nice. I get it. If they're nice to me, how come you can't be nice to me or to someone? I get it. But I'm throwing that out as an amendment. You can vote for either one, vote for none of it, vote for one, not the other. I mean, there's options here. Yes.
Was Kaylin ever a full-time employee?
Kaylin worked full-time from April 20th, 2010, and became deputy clerk when I became the clerk April 30th that year. And she worked until June 10th when she left, only because her doctor said that she needed to. She is still, right now, being paid as a part-time employee for just a couple hours a week until her disability through June.
So She only went to part-time because a doctor told her you have a medical reason to go to part-time.
Correct.
Is that correct?
She would,
She's a full-time employee.
she would be here today if she had not gotten sick.
As a full-time employee.
Oh, most definitely.
There you go.
I would be retiring and she'd be here after me, because her intent was to, even though she's older than I am, her intent was to work longer than me. So, I do appreciate it very much.
Nicole?
Can I adjust the original motion to include the amendment that you put out as well?
Okay, I was under the impression some people might not vote for the Kalen issue, but might vote
Okay.
for the policy as a whole. That was what I was reading. Doug?
I just go on record stating I support it. I support this, but it's a two-pronged approach for me personally in my council seat, that when we get something back for the overall taxpayers also. And I think most of you have heard me whine about it, but I just want to go on record saying I support this, and I agree Caitlin is an absolute doll. A very, very nice person. And that's it.
So, can I have a motion to accept the amendment?
So,
Just need a second.
I'll amend my second.
Oh, so now you want to vote it as one package?
What did you?
So you have a proposed motion to amend
Yeah.
by the motioner, and it's a matter of, is the second willing to second the amendment?
Got it.
Second the amendment.
Moved by Farmer Mark, seconded, was it moved?
By Nicole.
Okay, by Nicole, I'm sorry. Stole my thunder. No, you didn't. No, I'm just kidding. And seconded by Jody. Okay, any questions on the amendment? And the amendment deals with Mrs. Hill. No more questions or comments? All those in favor? Motion's unanimous. Now the motion on the policy, so to speak, of... No, it's not a policy. We can't use that word. It's just a stimulus package for $500 and for $525 and $250. Get it together, Mark.
I thought that was the motion.
We just voted on it all together.
Oh, we voted on it all together?
She amended. You amended the correct motion, and I seconded amended.
I thought we were working on two different things. Fair enough. Okay. Well, then it's done. Thank you. Sure. Now, a press release dealing with this, which is kind of the official way of entering it into our books, so that 5 years from now, someone says, hey, how'd you guys ever do that? Or why did you ever do it? It's written in the press release. And it's our official document that can go into the minutes of the meeting. There,
This will go on the city website. Is it going to go to paper too, or just to the city website?
I would assume press releases have their own flow of where they go, TV, radio, newspaper.
Okay, so it'll be just like any other.
Yep. Well, there's a couple of edits that need to be made still in this particular document.
Correct.
But we'll get that changed first thing and send it out tomorrow to the media sources.
Correct. Yes?
The question I discussed, what was the time frame on getting the employees to get their time to decide the businesses before it's distributed? Was it like April 15th or excuse me, May 15th? What was the time frame there?
At this point, we're hoping to have all this taken care of in the month of May.
Month of May, though.
Yep.
The department heads will get the lists to get distributed to employees.
Part of the issue we're running into is knowing that some businesses are closed under the current governor's executive order, and so it's communicating with them and trying to get things going back and forth. But we're hopeful we can have this all done by the end of May.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Do we read it? Let's read it. If you don't mind. Anybody mind? Okay. May 4th, 2020. Caribou City Council approved the use of $40,000 of prior year savings to boost the local economy. The funds had been placed into city reserves and to be used for financial contingencies. The council recognizes the current pandemic has created severe strains on local businesses and may significantly impact city finances. The authorized funds will be immediately injected into the local economy through the purchase of gift cards from local businesses. To offset the pandemic losses, many federal and state funding programs provide help to businesses so they can pay their employees and utilities. However, business owners have little opportunity to sustain their own livelihood without direct sales or increasing debt. The council has discussed the use of revolving loan funds to issue small, affordable gap loans at reduced rate. Another idea is to help business way was to increase sales through purchasing gift cards. At the same time, the council has been considering ways to show its appreciation to the city staff for their efforts to save taxpayer dollars in 2019. In 2019, there was a renewed council emphasis on reducing the city expenses to find ways to generate revenue without adding taxes. The city departments responded positively with a final expense savings over $202,000. Additionally, revenue exceeded expectations by more than $156,000. The council utilized some of these savings to build up the contingency credit reserve fund, i.e. rainy day fund, for the city. By city charter, other amounts will be used to offset future taxes. To help businesses through this pandemic, show appreciation to employees for their work, the council authorized using $40,000 of gift cards. Current full-time employees would be eligible for $500 of certificates, and permanent part-time employees could receive $250 of certificates. The caveat to receiving the benefit is that the employees must select gift cards from the 300-plus businesses located in Caribou. Employees can select multiple businesses from which to receive the total benefit. The council would like to express appreciation to the city residents and to the business owners for their perseverance during this time. The anxiety and tension caused by the unknown created by this pandemic can be challenging, but there have been many individuals who are thriving with strength and energy to raise the banner of faith, hope, and charity within our community. Please continue to find ways to support one another, lift spirits, and be good neighbors. We will get through this by the grace of God. The city of Caribou, Maine was originally settled in 18, and we're going to fill that in, by what was formerly unincorporated as Eaton Grant. Although it was originally called Linden, the name was changed to Caribou in 18, and we'll fill in that blank.
1893.
1893. Very good catch, Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
The other one, I think, is 1859.
Is that?
It was reorganized as a city in 1965, making it the most northeastern city in the United States. Caribou has 4 distinct seasons, making it a year-round destination for most outdoor recreational pursuits. Caribou not only boasts a long agrarian and cultural heritage, it also the hometown of 4-time U.S. Senator Susan Collins and recent International Space Station returnee Jessica Meir. Any comments or questions? Okay. This doesn't require a vote. No?
We already did it.
Thank you very much. Item 9B, discussion regarding the mill reduction in 2020. Okay. Once again, we thought we were sitting on the top of money, on top of a pile of money.
We in what, 10?
Starting in March of last year, that council acts for the last 10 years of actual expenses for each one of the departments. Through last summer, the council worked on analyzing those numbers and dissecting them, or as I often reference, we zero-base budgeted the deal. We noticed the discrepancy between the department cost per capita to Caribou residents and the service fees that the ambulance department was charging per capita to outside communities. Caribou residents and service communities are now paying equal cost per capita, and it's approximately $100 each. This correction, with all of its criticism, resulted in approximately $475,000 of unanticipated revenue. It was neither figured in the expense side, nor did we figure it in the income side. Because at the time, when we had to set the expense budget, we didn't really know. And the income side also. We could have done nothing. We could have kept the price at $11.50 for outside $11.50 for outside communities, and we could have kept it at $140 a person for our Caribou residents. We faced the criticism, we faced the resistance, and we corrected it. Once again, $475,000 of unanticipated revenue. There's been a lot of ways on how to spend this money. County budget, city budget, school budget, new police public safety building, giving $3 an hour raises to police department and fire department employees for hazardous pay because of the pandemic. And the list goes on how to spend it. And it struck me odd that I'm on the council, we took the heat, we took the criticism, and no one's asked me, how did I want to spend the money? And why am I the last one to have a say? And when I say I mean the council. Why are we the last ones to have a say? How would we like to spend this unexpected revenue? I'd like to ask those of us that went through the criticism, that went through the resistance, how do you want to spend this newfound money? We could have ignored it, and that money wouldn't be here today. We'd still be facing the school budget. We'd still be facing our own budget. We'd still be facing the public safety building budget. We'd still be facing all these things. But what do you want to spend the $477,000 on? Once again, back in February, when this was all coming to reality, we were looking pretty good. And then this virus thing hit, and it's been a downhill rise ever since. And oddly enough, the criticism keeps on coming. You know, I guess one of the most oddest things that I ran into about this was we were even accused of not thinking about the safety of our employees. that we did not take this thing serious enough. And that went to my heart because we were following what the governor and what other towns were doing. And the criticism came rolling right in, like we didn't care. And that is not true. It's been quite a ride. I'd like to explain to my fellow councillors what I'd like to do with this $477,000. I'd like to drop the mill rate in Caribou by 1 mil, which means $340,000 has to come out of the $477,000. I've been criticized by that because some of my conservative friends will say, how come I'm not getting the full 1.5 mil reduction? Why aren't I getting it all? And at the time, because there's enough here for everybody to get a little. There really is. If somebody wants it all, it kind of takes the sting out of the concept of how could we spread this around. It still leaves approximately $140,000 left. Remember, we wouldn't even have anything if we didn't go through the criticism part of this deal. People will say, yeah, we should have changed it, but I didn't like the way you did it. Well, by the time we figured this discrepancy out in late November, I looked around and I didn't see anybody doing anything, right or wrong, about this issue. So if the criticism is that we didn't do it right, I'll take it. We did make a few errors in the process. We needed to give the towns more time, and we did. But we did it. I'd like to, this is a first read. We can't vote on it because it's part of a big picture. We have to see what the school budget does. We have to see what we can do with our own revenue. I'd like to send the county a letter. I mean, they sent us their tax bill before the virus. Have they done, can they tighten their belts? Can they revisit their expense budget in light of everything? We can't have people going up 5 and 6% over last year's expense budgets, hand us the bill, and expect us to have anything left over. We all got to take a little bit of this newfound money and use it. I like the idea that we helped the employees. I like the idea that we helped the businesses. This is our way of helping the Caribou taxpayer. I think Phil McDonough, in his letter tonight, mentioned it. Reduce the taxes. It helps us all. Perfect sentence that he had in that letter. Gail's letter. Couldn't there be better things to do? Lowering the mill rate, 1 mil. After all, you'll find it's the business people, men and women, are really paying a big part of our pie when it comes to tax dollars. And this is a good way, as token as it is, to drop it 1 mil. Over the next couple of weeks, and so I take this idea and I throw it on the pile. I throw it on the pile that says, let's go build a new public safety building, money with it. I throw it on the pile that says, let's pay for education for our children. More, I throw it on the pile with the county government. I even throw it on the pile with our own department heads who have, rightfully so, advocating for their department, wanting to spend it in each one of their departments. I get it. I throw it on that pile for consideration. And we got to do all the kazuntas by the time June, second meeting in June. We have to make some decisions. Over the next couple of meetings, I hope every counselor, if you're not tonight, how do you want to spend the money? And let the Caribou taxpayers hear us, get these ideas, and you stand on it. That's your conviction. And the chips fall where they may. I got news. It's not really a news flash. The criticisms aren't going to stop. They're going to keep on coming. No matter what we do. No matter who we give the money to. No matter what direction it flies in. We're going to get criticized. Didn't mean to get so long-winded, but I'm very compassionate about this. Just like giving the $40,000 in gift certificates. This is our way of being, in my opinion, good stewards for our community. Thanks. Anybody have any comments? Or, like I said, it's on the table. It's not going away. I'm the mayor. I won't let it go away.
Mayor?
Just, I'm in favor, obviously, of reducing the mill rate, if we can do that. And I know you said that it's been brought forward from citizens, I guess, probably to look at the fire EMT pay. And I think that isn't a terrible idea for us to look at. As you said, there will be some money left over, even with the mill rate reduction, and maybe that's something that we could spend a little time looking at as well.
Correct. Looking into my crystal ball, we're losing $100,000. We don't know this for a fact, but we've lost we thought we were going to get $140,000 of additional revenue from Maine State revenue sharing. And once again, we have to assume here, and we've cut $100,000 out of that. We just got an inkling that we might be losing $30,000 in interest. What was the number you said?
25,000.
25,000 in interest. All these are going into a pile. All these ideas. Any idea anybody wants to come up with is going into a pile. It's knock out, drag out. How do we best spend it so the most people can get the best benefit? That's an idea. Joan.
Seriously, got to look at the River Road. Sorry.
And we got to look at the River Road.
Look at the River Road. And closing, no.
But Joan, I can also throw on, that's true. That's what I mean. People know how to spend money. you know all the ideas that are coming in of people, hey, we also got to figure out what we're going to do with that roof on that fire station.
And you've got some other roads. We went riding around the other day, and there's some other roads that are at risk right now. We're doing exactly what happened to the River Road. That Grimes Mill Road is scary.
It is. It was scary too. I mean,
and stuff. But
for the past 2-3 years.
yeah.
So these are the ideas. I've just said how I like to spend it.
Oh, and I think giving it back to, I'm not saying that we need to take it all, but I think there's ways that we can fix that road that would be acceptable, that wouldn't take a whole lot of money, and we could still give a good portion of it back to the taxpayers.
Doug?
I'm in favor, obviously, of a mill rate reduction for the citizens, but I'm also concerned with the revenues left that we have the people's asset at the fire station that needs some attention. Should have had it years ago. maybe one of the things the committee could look at, instead of going through the overall expense of upgrading structural and going through all of that just so you can put a thicker pack on, maybe it might be in our interest to just go ahead and replace what's there with a new roof of what was matched and free up some of those dollars to other projects. I mean, it's still giving us and I'm just throwing it out as an idea, it gives us the attention that, number one, the roof's got to be taken care of. There's arguments both sides of the coin as to whether we need to increase the insulation pack. Just a thought, but it's got to be dealt with. We have to take care of the people's asset. Thanks.
Dennis, you had a write-up?
So, as you say, there are a lot of things that are going to be coming down the pipe. There's the pile of where could we spend it. There's a pile of money to spend from. And as has been indicated tonight multiple times, this pandemic is causing a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of financial concern for the state level. We may only have $470,000. We might have that in new contracts, but we may end up losing that in other ways. And so as we have these discussions about the mill rate and the ability to reduce the mill rate, we also have to look at what other money do we have that's coming in to help make that possible. And we're obviously watching the expenses, watching the revenues, and trying to be sensitive to what options are out there. To do a full mill rate reduction at this point, it's going to cost more than $470,000 to make that happen. But certainly we can bring back more numbers to you. I've already met with the department heads today to talk with them about we may need to curb expenditures for a little while and monitor what's happening with all the revenues that are not coming in at this point because we're closed. We don't know what's going to happen when we do open the doors again. Is it going to be one big balloon, open the floodgates, people are coming in, or is it just going to start to trickle in again? But these are some of the crystal ball assumption things that you talk about that we're trying to get our grasp on as we have these discussions.
I guess the thing that has me so I just sit back, I can't understand it. My gosh, I didn't get on this council so that I could be criticized for trying to straighten this out the way I've been criticized. How this council has been criticized, the way it's been criticized. The easy way would have been just to ignore it. Let the other towns pay $11.50 and let the Caribou citizens pay the $140. We straightened it up. That difference is not, it's the citizens' money. They're the ones that have been subsidizing the service rates for the last 7 or 8 years. I guess I'm curious, what are you, suppose you didn't have the $477,000. Suppose we didn't go through all that. What are you telling me now? That we could be looking at a 2 or 3 mil increase?
I'm telling you, the $470,000 is a contracted obligation that we have coming in, yes, but we didn't have before. But there are other revenue sources that are impacted maybe as much or greater to the negative this year that we're trying to monitor as we get closer to setting the mill rate.
So if we hadn't gone through this process, you're looking at a 4 or 5 mil increase? You know where I'm, you know what,
Yep,
it's
a, we are in a better situation.
It's a philosophy. If we can't reduce the mill rate with this newfound money, when can the council ever reduce the mill rate?
And I'm not saying you can't reduce it. I mean, to do a full mill at this point, again, my exercise today, even this morning, was worst case scenario, almost doomsday type of thing. Not necessarily that extreme, but to reduce a full mill rate, to have that benefit in place, it would be almost $500,000 that we'd have to be finding to make that work and still be able to have all the operations taken care of. Actually, to say all the operations, that's even reducing operation expenses by over $100,000 to make that work. So again, it's as we throw things on the table, we're looking at, okay, can we do all of that? Can we do part of it? Can we do a little bit of other things? It's going to be a numbers thing as we get closer to setting the mill rate.
It is a numbers game.
Right.
The 2020 budget on the city side shows that we're going to be spending approximately $380,000 more than what we did in 2019. We haven't cut nothing. People think we've cut. People keep using the word, you've cut. You've cut. We haven't cut nothing. People will come in, grab the microphone, say we're slashing and we're burning, and it's not true. What we've done is we reduced the requested increase in spending. We haven't cut anybody. Nobody's lost hours. Nobody's been reduced in dollars or what they pay. Nobody's been laid off. To my knowledge, everyone is still whole. I really wish I could say that for our businesses. This mill rate reduction is very important from my point of view. That's what I'm saying. I'm throwing it in the pile. We are going to have to go over the numbers. On the next council meeting, we're going to look at the expense budget. And the next council meeting after that, we want to look at the income budget.
Okay.
Because I must be reading something wrong. My numbers are not quite as severe as yours, as I see them. When will we notice? When will we know what we're really going to get for revenue sharing from the state of Maine? What's that rough date?
We get a monthly installment from them,
Correct.
and they have projections that they publish on a quarterly basis. But even those are suspect at this point. Until the state opens up again, they're even throwing caution to the wind on those.
Can I assume that we're going to know this before we have to go through the mill rate process?
We will give you the best information that we have available.
Okay.
I know that was as political an answer as it gets.
Busy spending money on land
Oh.
and fryers for parks, and it's a joke. You're not going to see it. You're going to see a lot less. So, as far as I'm concerned, don't count on the state.
What date will we know how much increased revenue we're going to get because of new construction in Caribou in 2019? What's our tax?
Oh, as far as the assessed value
Yes.
of all the properties?
Yes.
That will be the middle of June before we set the mill rate.
Okay. I mean, we've lost some big ones, but we've gained some.
Right?
It's a reason, well, that's a different subject. I'll wait. Any other comments or questions? I'm going to end this by saying, I ran for city council. This is the reason. We can run the city better. Not that it's being run wrong now. You always strive to be better. We can run it better for less cost. It's just a philosophy I have. Every businessman and woman that's surviving out there today has that as their theory. They have to wake up in the morning thinking, how can I do what I'm doing now cheaper? And how can I get more money? And that's the mindset we have to have as we go into this process. No one's going to get fired. No one's going to get laid off. No one's going to get reduced pay. That's not how you do it. You do it through the revenue side. And we do not even come close as a city talking about revenue. The only way we talk about revenue is when we say, well, let's raise the mill rate. No. That's not the conversation. The conversation we have to do is, how do we get more businesses to come in? How do we get more people to move here? The reason for the blight committee. So it's a mindset. We have to come at it positive. We have to come at it with a can-do attitude, and it can be done. Well, I went on longer than I had planned, but isn't that always the way it goes with me? Any other comments or questions? As I say, this is an open discussion for any future council meeting until the day this pile, I'm trying to think of the analogy right now, but this pile's got to be decided how we're going to do it. Thank you. Reports and discussion by mayor and council members. I've got something to say. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Watch the internet light up. Anybody got anything to say? Doug?
You know, I have two items. The first is the plowing RFQ process, and where is it at?
I recognize you didn't get the final packet in time, but we do have numbers now of lane miles and area. So we'll be inserting that, and that will be ready for advertisement before your first meeting in June.
Okay. My second topic was purchase orders. I know Dennis had brought something forward a week or a couple meetings ago, and I would like to see it. Hope the council can come to an agreement and on how to handle it. In my opinion, 0 to whatever it was, I can't remember, I don't have it in front of me, $1,000, $2,000 is where the abuse, and I'm not saying it's being abused, I'm just saying that's where the abuse will happen. Chances of some person abusing something 20, 30,000 is very, very nil. And again, I think that we ought to be on purchase orders trackable for everything that's purchased. That's what I got.
Mayor, just
Go ahead.
to address that, I did hear back from our auditors today. They've finally reviewed that policy that was reviewed and are looking forward to a conversation with me, so I'll have that tomorrow with them. So we were just waiting for the auditors to get their feedback to us.
Pardon me.
We were waiting for the auditors to review that policy and get back to us.
So what were we, maybe I missed the question, I'm just play devil's advocate. What were we hoping they'd bring to the table on the purchase order system auditors?
Just to review the policy that we had as far as putting things out to bid and when, the thresholds for policies and see if they had any specifics that needed to be addressed from the auditing standpoint.
Hugh? Tom?
Earlier this week, I saw an email from you about the city office and the shrouds and everything. Is that going to come to fruition anytime soon? And like when?
We ordered the parts for the spit screens for lack of a better term, last week, and it should have been in this morning, and we'll be able to get those installed this week.
Who's making it?
SW Collins is providing the parts, and really all it is double tape on brackets, and we'll just take care of that in-house.
So remind me again, City Hall is not open?
City Hall is not currently open to the public.
When will we open it?
We are shooting for May 18th.
May 18th?
We know that there are some cities that are following very strictly the governor's rule that not being open until June 1st, but we're hoping to have certain facilities open, particularly the clerk's office, because of all of the payments that need to be made by May 18th.
So is it safe to say as soon as we have these spit screens in place, we could open up?
Well, there will be additional measures put in place, 6-foot indicators and things. We're going to be meeting very soon to talk about flow of public through the building, maintaining separation distances, right.
So you need spit screens, duct tape with X's on the floor, and traffic cones.
Those types of things are what we want to make sure we have in place, theoretically.
We need to get back to business.
Yep.
And I think the measures that are in place by the CDC, people are wearing masks in public, social distancing 6 feet apart, there's spit screens in,
Mhm.
the direct flow traffic. We need to open this puppy up 1 week is my advice. And I think it's doable quickly, easily done. I mean, look, we don't have to win a fashion show here just to get everybody. I've heard from multiple citizens, when am I going to be able to come in and register my vehicle? I'm a vet. I got new vet plates. I tried to renew them online. I can't. I got to go in the city office. I can't, even though I said, you don't have to register your vehicle. You don't have to inspect it. Geez, you can drive down Bennett Drive with, coming right off the manifold. It doesn't matter. But people want to be able to register the vehicle. They want to come in and do things. So I'd shoot for a week.
Well, and some of those processes are predicated upon the state actually opening up. We haven't been registering vehicles because the state's not registering vehicles. There's certain things
But
that
this
we can.
person called down to the state and they said you need to go into your city office and fix it. I actually went to the DMV, talked to the lady at DMV.
So, again, we're trying to work through what we can do, what the state's trying to do, and
I know, but
we want to be open too. We do. I know there's things, I saw an email late this afternoon from our library director where they're getting direction on how to handle collections and open things and not open things. And we're trying to deal with everything.
Let's follow the guidelines of the CDC and try to work towards normalcy. We just can't jump in feet first because you're going to end up infecting people. I'm smart about it. Follow the CDC. The next question I had is, I've also been hearing a lot of chatter about everybody talked last year about a splash pad over to the rec and how they thought that was a wonderful idea. We no longer have a pool in this town. That's been taken over and that's gone. Where are we at? Are we going to have funds for that? I haven't talked to anybody at the rec about it. This is kind of something I was thinking about the other day, and I thought to myself, well, geez, what are we going to do? Are we going to have a splash pad?
We have $125,000 that was donated to the city for the development of a splash pad, and that money is still sitting, waiting to be spent specifically on that. My conversation with Gary last week was that we're just waiting for a design on incorporating that into the construction at the Teague Park. But the hope is that it will be done this year.
Okay. I just want to make sure we have something for when once this pandemic finally does leave and we can all get back to normal, hey, guess what? We're going to have a brand new splash pad. Where are these kids going to go? Because right now, everybody's sitting at home. So aren't the kids. And I'm a big kid person, you know. I want my kids to enjoy life, and there's no way of life right now. That's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Jody, anything? You?
I got some stuff for executive session.
Doug?
Good to go. See, it surprised you.
Joan?
Good?
Good.
Thank you. Number 11, City Manager's Report.
Councilors, in your packet is the information on multiple projects that we're still monitoring, watching. I guess, again, just to highlight some of these, the 60 Access Highway building, it is under contract. We're shooting for a closing of June 12th. We ran into a little bit of a hiccup with what appears to be a mortgage still on the property to the previous owner has, but all the payments were made. It just needs to get a release, and so we've got our attorney working to make sure that that happens. As far as events and marketing, things that are going on, we are looking, because of the governor's executive orders, Thursdays on Sweden may be delayed a little bit. As far as being able to have mass gatherings in the month of June, that's probably not going to happen, and so we're trying to develop some workarounds with that. We've discussed a new idea, Tooling Tuesdays. I had no idea what tooling meant when it was mentioned to me, but I guess if you grew up here, you understand driving up and down the road. We called it driving the drag, you know, dragging Main Street, but that was a little bit different.
Fooling around town.
Yeah. So we're still trying to look at ways to engage the public and get some community interest still going. There's a survey out on Facebook right now as far as selecting the picture of the month. If you take a minute to look at the photos that were all submitted there for the month, a lot of beautiful pictures. Blight cleanup, we've completed the blight survey. Ken is working on getting that into the computer so that we can map that and be able to illustrate where the blight issues are in the community. We are still working with the blight committee, and we've started putting together all the narrative on all the tools, and I know that the council was hoping for that in the month of May. We're still in the process of pulling that together, and so we'll keep working on that. Hopefully by the month of June we'll have something back to the council for that. The bird's eye cleanup, we anticipate that there will be some resuming of work on May 18th. There is, my opinion, excess materials on the site that still need to be moved off, and so McGillen's is going to work with us to do that. As far as COVID-19 support, we continue to, whenever we get information for local businesses, we try to push that out to Facebook or to the citizens, make that information available. The Sitel building has officially changed hands. Mr. Dana Cassidy is the new owner of that building, and we'll work now with Mr. Cassidy to determine their needs, possible uses, and reuse of the building, and even possible relinquishment of some of the parking that is associated with the leases there, and what we can do with that. NMDC is working using some of their own brownfield grant funds to look at a phase 1 and possible phase 2 environmental study of the power plant properties, which would be really the first step in identifying potential what really the cost might be in those properties, and maybe getting them down and redeveloped. And so they're working with that. We did receive word from the DOT that a developer is asking to purchase some of their property on Limestone Street for an ATV sled storage facility right next to the trail. So that's something very positive to see something happening down there. We've already talked about some of the COVID-19 things that we're working on. As far as the public safety building is concerned, Artifacts is currently proceeding with design of what would be an ideal floor plan based just on the operations of the department. It basically just means based on what we have, what we do in the department, this would be the building, the footprint, and the floor plan. But they can't give us any final estimate of cost until the city decides which property we seriously want to look at actually putting that on. Because then you get into access to utilities, grading, drainage, and everything else. And so we know that there's been a lot of properties discussed, the former Bird's Eye plant, the airport, redevelopment near the county offices, maybe along Bennett Drive, the recreation center. We really just need to, I guess at this point from the council standpoint, is try to narrow down if we can what properties we really want to take a serious look at placing this ideal floor plan on. But they'll bring all of this information back. It's, I guess, a question for what does the council want to do as far as investigating options for location. And we're looking roughly, again, about an acre and a half of property is what you'd be looking at for just a police station. So I don't know if there's any direction that can be given that way. We want to have a work session on properties. How does the council want to proceed?
I'm open for suggestions. Go ahead, Doug.
I'm not in favor of building a new police station. I'm in favor of modifying existing fire station basement and with a possible addition to move from there. That would be about the extent of my support on spending for a police station. Is there good, bad, or indifferent?
Maybe we schedule it for next Tuesday.
A workshop for next Tuesday. We got one Monday.
No, you have one.
And so we'll have one on Tuesday.
Unless you just want to make the Monday night a 2 agenda item.
Huh?
I'm flexible.
I'm this far into the game. Why not? I just think we ought to, until we see what happens with this virus, until we see where we are with the finances, till we we're going to know so much more in 2 months. I mean, personally, I'm in favor of building something, not what was presented to us. But I'm interested in exploring the possibility of building something. It's just me. Irregardless, I just don't know how we can do it, and we're trying to figure out how to survive right now. We're still paying off those wood boilers. You know, those pellet boilers, the gift that keeps on giving. You know? So
I can get back with Artifacts and see, as far as their development of the ideal building, what kind of time frame are we looking at as far as getting that prepared? It's in the scope of the contract that we signed with them, and then at that point we could have some more discussions. as far as,
I agree with you, Mark. You're so-
Everything we've looked at from day one had us building the whole shebang somewheres. And I asked this question, and I thought I was rudely rejected. But there's still value to what we have downstairs. Do we have to build new jail cells when we already have them downstairs? Do we have to build new jail cells when I'm getting rumblings that the county's looking at doing something between Caribou and Presque Isle? Then we won't need jail cells. Why do we need jail cells? Well, because it's going to cost us $300 to transport them to Holton. Okay. What do we charge other towns for their prisoners? $65. Why aren't we charging them $275? Let them save $25. It almost reminds me of the ambulance fee deal. We're subsidizing other towns to take care of their prisoners. You can't go out and build a $6 million facility with new jails and only charge $60 a night for a prisoner. The gazuntas aren't going to work out. The men need offices. The men need the appearance. They need a spruce up for appearance. The city should always be working on infrastructure. Always have a project going. The wood pellet boiler set us back tremendously. We were supposed to save money on that, and that thing's been nothing but a leech on our side. $100,000 a year for nothing. It's just, we have to take this slow. We have to take it easy. So when you go to these architectures, I'd like to start just the opposite. Instead of building the Taj Mahal, hey, what are some nice offices located somewhere else? What would they cost? A lobby, 3 or 4 offices, chief, secretary, deputy chief, whatever. A room for the men, a little kitchen, something. But offices. But that's me. It takes time. I haven't talked it over with the rest of the council. I don't even know what the consensus on the council is. So, but to make any decisions right now, I just think until this thing's over with.
and I'm not pushing that we make a decision in the next 2 weeks. I'm definitely not, because there is a lot of other options, and I've brought up the same jail cell issue with the architects, and they've provided some good comments that I'll forward on to the council. But yeah, there may be some options there that, maybe we leave them where they're at, build something else, or
Okay.
do we maybe just put it on as an attachment to the plan that if the county decides they're going to do something, we can just strip it off the plan,
Okay. I like the idea. Don't put it on the plan, and if the county doesn't do anything, then we'll add it. I mean, you did it just opposite on me there, buddy.
Well, and it's up in the air right now. That's the problem. Is the county is looking at, do we build a brand new down in Holton, because that's been the center for the jail for many, many years, or do we split it, put a central heuristic, a southern heuristic, or do we build one that's centered in the population base of the county? They're just starting the investigation process right now. Yeah, I mean, you could be
4 or
a
5.
year to 18 months just to get the study done of what they want to do. And then at that point, it's, so,
I mean, they're supposed to start a committee,
Yeah.
but that got on hold, right, because of this pandemic thing.
and I don't know, I think Counselor Smith was going to get involved with that. I don't know if you've heard anything from them on the committee or,
No, I haven't.
okay.
See, I
So,
think
yeah, it's-
everything's on hold and stuff like that. And
Yep.
but when you make an investment of $6.5 million into a new police station with new jail cells, you got to know those jail cells have value 10, 12 years down the road so that you can get your return on it. I mean, that's the whole deal. I mean, and I'm just going to put it and it's just my personal opinion. The most important thing our police department can do is have a presence. They do many important things. One of the things I look forward to is to see their presence. You're going down the highway pretty fast and you see a car, whether anyone's in it or not, you hit the brakes. At least I do. Having a presence is important. And I can't think of a better asset that we want to protect than the students that are going to that new school, to the students that are going to go over and splash in that new splash pad, and to the students that are using the rec center after school. There's no better presence for our police department to be located than in that vicinity somewheres. And the way this world is going, it's going to get worse, in my opinion. And we have to protect this. We have to protect our assets. So presence. Not how big the building is, not how fancy it is, not all the bells and whistles, but having presence is what's important. And they do not have a good presence when they're located down here at today's needs. When downtown was active and going strong, I get it. But things evolve.
Okay.
Sorry, went off again. I don't know. Jeez. Give me some tape.
We can schedule that at another time, and definitely there's more discussion to take place. Again, I'm not pushing for it to be done in the next 2 weeks. As has been mentioned, as far as union negotiations go, we're now waiting to reschedule the mediation with Public Works and also get additional word on mediation with the police union. The fire structural study that's already been talked about tonight, at the last meeting that we had, taking the tour of the facility, there was comments that were written down. We're just waiting to get all of those comments back so we can forward those on to the architect and make sure things are getting addressed. More discussion to take place on that. I don't know if there's any questions, anything else that we have there. I guess River Road, we are monitoring that. We've identified that there are other areas of failure to the south of places that we fixed last year, places that have dropped 4 to 5 feet off the shoulder, but within 10 feet of the existing road. So the current design that we've been thinking was going to be put in place as even a rough fix may not be sufficient. And so we definitely need to start looking at options. And I know one of them that's been discussed is maybe we just need to start bulldozing and lowering the road down so that we can reduce some of the weight in the area and make some things happen. But for right now, we think we're pretty much through the spring thaw, and we'll continue to watch the road as it is. And we can get through the summer, we think, pretty easily. But next spring, again, we may be facing additional failures.
How are we doing on, so I guess that, remember, if we knew what the boundaries were, we might be able to swap some land. How's that working out?
I can share that with you in executive session tonight.
Got it.
Yep.
Any other questions? You?
Can I make some suggestions on the manager's report and stuff to add? And
Okay.
Go for it.
okay, so on the administrative side, can you add a topic for the CD status, $300 CD status?
Mhm.
Add a topic for the PO processes signing authority. And the events and marketing on the economic side, can you move that to the administrative side?
The procurement policy is on the update, so
Did I miss it?
on the admin side.
Oh, there it is, I'm sorry.
Yep.
My bad, there it is. Okay. The riverfront development over on the economic side, can you split that into 3 different topics? A separate topic for 142 Lower Linden, a separate topic for the MDOT Limestone Street, storage facility, and then a separate topic for the salmon for Maine / hatchery. As long as no one has a problem with that. Okay.
Anything else? Anybody? Okay, thank you. Item number 12. Gloria critiques me every council night, and she let me know, don't ever forget Jane again.
I won't let you.
Jane, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I just want to make sure that everyone realizes they can call in and request an absentee ballot for the July 14th primary. I had 6 requests come in through the electronic site over the weekend, and I probably had 10 requests for telephone calls today. I really I know that Councilor Smith, he asked for it through an email, but he can't do it that way.
I have
I
to
got to give
call.
you a form, or you can call me.
Okay, I wasn't sure how the
Yeah.
process was.
Or you can go on the electronic site,
I'll
but
ju-
just
I'll
an
just call
email.
you.
Yeah. So spread the word that we want to do as many absentee ballots as possible. I will also report that I had to survey my workers to get whether or not I was going to be able to get a crew for July, and I only had one of my crew that said that they would prefer not to. Somebody in their 70s, so I understand. And so I have my crew. I had to report that to the state because there are other communities throughout the state that are having issues getting their crew. The state, I had to put an order in for our PPE for gloves, masks, shields, and hand sanitizer for both the July election and the November election. So I have to do estimates on that. So please call, request, go online for your absentee ballots. Everyone gets to vote because there are 2 referendum questions. So that's my shout out for that. The other is, today, I come in and I plan. Every day I have a plan what I'm going to work on. Mondays I always have a plan. And today I didn't get my plan done at all. Because I'll tell you, we are not open to the public. But we were hopping all day long. We were hopping with the pile that got dropped off over the weekend. And to be honest, I haven't cash receipted for a month. These 2 ladies that I have took it over for me. I said, I'll do every 3rd day. We'll have just one person do it. Well, my day, they took it over for me, and ever since then, the month of April, I took in this amount of money. Okay? It's never done that before. But today I had to have two of the ladies processing because they would have never gotten done. They had a pile that was over the weekend, a pile that came in the mail. We went down and had a third pile in the afternoon. To be honest, the revenues for the month of April, if you look at the clerk's report, they were higher than I thought they would be, to be honest. So, as for doing motor vehicles, and we have the forms right here. They're down in the police station. They're on the city's website. You can take them home with you. You're able to do these through the mail or through the Dropbox. And she will email them to people.
For your excise?
This is for registration. If you don't want to do it on the online rapid renewal site, we use these forms, and Danielle will email them. And she is the motor vehicle agent, so she handles all those phone calls. We have started Friday doing ATVs if people have not access to do them online or they have new ones to them. So we're doing that.
Jane, just quick clarification. We can do renewals
Correct.
here, but
Correct.
not new purchases.
No, we can't do, right, we cannot do new ones and we don't do transfers. So anyone who's got a new vehicle and wants to do a transfer, you have to wait until motor vehicle opens up. And there is some concern amongst us that we had a person that was insistent that wanted it done before the end of April last week because wanting to get that credit. But what if we gave her credit, but then they open in June, because that's what it looks like from the last governor's order, that state employees won't go back until June. It could be expired by then. Her registration that she was trying to transfer could be expired. And so we were like, it's really not your best bet. You really need to wait, drive on your temporary ones until we know what's happening with motor vehicle and we're open. So, the other thing about, the manager and I have spoken, and we're talking about the plan, getting our call them a hawker stopper, but they're really the barricade, the plexiglass barricade between us and the customers. We've got to have our routines of wiping down the areas, using disinfectants. What door are they going to go out? So are those double doors on the inside, are they going to be kept open all the time so they're not two less doorknobs that we have to clean? Do we have chairs for people to sit in? You know, your chairs should all be sanitized after you leave tonight. So there's really a procedure. What might work for the other departments in this building might not work for the clerk's department. And I would prefer, and I think the manager and I agree on this, is that we want to be organized because the other two women and myself were expecting a lot of pent up want to come into the clerk's office. And we want to do it, but we want to do it safely and organized because we really don't want you getting calls saying that I had to wait for 2 hours, 3 hours, and I'm out in the parking lot. How are we going to handle that? I also, one of my favorite 90-plus-year-old widowers here in town called today, wants to pay his taxes, his monthly taxes. And I said, put it in the mail, drop it in the police department. And I'm like, don't come into this office even when we're open. You're 90-plus something years old. Don't come in. Trying to protect you from yourself. I would prefer to be open than closed, but I really want to have it organized before we open. Because you're just going to get the complaints. So that's about all I have to say on that. Okay, I have the forms.
Thank you, Jane.
Yep.
Anybody else? Okay, Chair will entertain a motion to go into executive session. Let me see. We have real estate and economic development under 405.6.c.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Tommy, seconded by Hugh to go into executive session. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great, safe evening.